Hello friends, welcome to a new topic today, and in this topic we are going to learn about rhinitis. Okay, rhinitis can be classified into two types. We have acute rhinitis and we have chronic rhinitis. Okay, acute type of rhinitis can be again of two types. In this we have acute rhinitis and we have acute nasal diphtheria. Then if you see chronic rhinitis can be specific or it can be non-specific or allergic. Specific chronic rhinitis is, here you see chronic granulomatous disease is seen. Specific chronic rhinitis mainly includes chronic granulomatous disease. Then non-specific chronic rhinitis is seen in atrophic rhinitis, rhinitis sicca and rhinitis caseosa. Okay, non-specific chronic rhinitis is seen in atrophic rhinitis, rhinitis sicca and rhinitis caseosa. Then allergic rhinitis, examples are seasonal variant or perennial variant allergic rhinitis, or they are vasomotor rhinitis. So first we will see acute rhinitis or rhinitis caseosa. Okay, what do you see in acute rhinitis or rhinitis caseosa? This is most commonly seen in children. It is most commonly common cold. It is seen in adult and school going children. The most common virus involved in this acute rhinitis is rhinovirus. Other viruses like influenza, parainfluenza virus, echovirus, retrovirus and adenovirus are also involved. Then sometimes secondary infection can also occur with streptococci, staphylococci, pneumococci, Haemophilus influenza and Moraxella catarrhalis. Clinical features are mainly there is burning and trickling sensation at the back of the nose, which causes nasal stuffiness, rhinorrhea, sneezing and low grade fever. Initially there is profuse watery discharge and slowly this has been progressed to mucopurulent discharge due to secondary bacterial infection. Initially there is profuse watery discharge which will again change to mucopurulent discharge due to secondary bacterial infection. Then you see dry cough is also associated due to post-nasal drip. What is the treatment? Treatment is bed rest, vitamin C can be given, antihistaminics, anti-inflammatory drugs, antibiotics can also be given if secondary infection occurs. Then we will have to see about chronic type of rhinitis. So in chronic type of rhinitis, the first type is hypertrophic rhinitis. So what do we see in hypertrophic rhinitis? In this we have simple rhinitis. If untreated, it will lead to hypertrophic rhinitis. In hypertrophic rhinitis, there is thickening of the mucosa, submucosa, seromucinous glands, periosteum and bone occurs. There is thickening of submucosa, mucosa, seromucinous glands and periosteum and bone occurs. As a result, there will be nasal obstruction because of thickened structures, and it also causes nasal discharge and it causes nasal obstruction and nasal discharge also. Then what about the signs? If you do anterior rhinoscopy, you see hypertrophy of turbinates. Especially there is hypertrophy of inferior turbinates, and this hypertrophy of inferior turbinates is called as mulberry-like appearance of nasal mucosa. This is called as mulberry-like appearance of nasal mucosa. You see mulberry-like appearance in nasal mucosa. Next, does not pit on pressure and shows very little shrinkage with vasoconstrictor. What is the treatment? Treatment is we can do turbinectomy can be done. This turbinectomy can be done either by laser route, that is we can do a laser turbinectomy, or you can do submucosal diathermy, you can do cryosurgery, and submucosal resection can be done either with laser or submucosal resection of turbinate or cryosurgery of turbinate or submucosal diathermy of turbinate can be done. So this is about hypertrophic rhinitis. Then we have the next group of rhinitis is called as atrophic rhinitis. So what do you see in atrophic rhinitis? See, in atrophic rhinitis, the patient suffers. See, the main etiology of atrophic rhinitis includes, here it is associated with hereditary, okay, endocrine pathology. This is associated with hereditary endocrine pathology. If you see race, whites are more commonly affected than the other races. Okay, nutritional deficiencies are also associated with this atrophic rhinitis. Infection like Klebsiella ozena, diphtheroids, coccobacillus or Azeola, all these are associated, and it can also occur due to autoimmune diseases. So hereditary causes, endocrine pathology where there is mostly estrogen deficiency, white and yellowish race most commonly, deficiency of vitamin A, D, E and F, infection like Klebsiella ozena, diphtheroid, paracoccidioids, coccobacillus or Ozionella. We have other autoimmune conditions can also cause this atrophic rhinitis. So what is happening in atrophic rhinitis? In atrophic rhinitis, mainly the ciliated columnar epithelium. Ciliated columnar epithelium, which is normally present in the nose and the nasal cavity, has been lost, and this is replaced by stratified squamous epithelium. That means there is metaplasia occurs in the atrophic rhinitis. Then there is also atrophy of seromucinous glands are also seen. Atrophy of seromucinous glands are seen. Then there will be turbinate resorption can occur, and because of this turbinate resorption there will be widening of nasal chambers is seen. Turbinate resorption leads to widening of nasal chambers, and this also cause loss of sensory nerve, which will lead to excessive crusting, which causes nasal obstruction. There will be loss of sensory nerve leading to excessive crusting, leading to nasal obstruction. Now, what about the clinical features? Clinical features, it is seen in low socioeconomic status, most commonly in females at puberty. Then here the patient presents with anosmia, that is she cannot feel the smell. Okay, but there is foul smelling coming from her. There is loss of epithelium which causes secondary bacterial infection. Because of this secondary bacterial infection, there is foul smelling discharge. This foul smelling discharge is, okay, the patient cannot feel the smell that is coming from her. This is called as a condition which is called as merciful anosmia. In this, the patient herself cannot feel the smell due to the loss of sensory nerves. Due to the loss of sensory nerves, the patient cannot feel the smell. Then sometimes there is nasal obstruction and epistaxis are seen. Next, what are the signs? Signs are there is roomy nasal cavity, greenish large crusts are seen. On removal of the crusts, you will see bleeding which is occurring. So you will see roomy nasal cavity here, and you will also see large greenish large crusts. And if you try to remove the crusts, it causes bleeding, and the nasal mucosa appears pale due to the atrophy of the feeding arteries, and this is called as obliterative endarteritis. This is called as obliterative endarteritis. Then even the atrophic changes occur sometimes. So these atrophic changes mainly occur in the pharyngeal mucosa, in the larynx. In the larynx, it causes atrophic laryngitis. So the atrophic changes occurs in the pharyngeal mucosa and larynx also. If it occurs in larynx, it causes atrophic laryngitis. So investigation is, you can use X-ray PNS. In the X-ray PNS, that is in the Waters view, you can see thickening of the wall of the sinus is seen. So this is the investigation for X-ray PNS, paranasal sinuses. Then if you see the treatment, for the treatment we have medical treatment which is available, and we have surgical treatment which is available. In the medical treatment, mainly we use warm nasal alkaline solution can be used. This warm nasal alkaline solution contains 28 ml of water. To this we add 1 part of sodium bicarbonate, which contains 28.4 grams, and to this you will add 1 part of sodium biborate, which contains same 28.4 grams, and you add 2 parts of sodium chloride that contains 56.7 grams. So you add 28 ml of water, 1 part of sodium bicarbonate and sodium biborate, both each 28.4 grams, and you will add 2 parts of NaCl, which is 26.7 grams, and you will irrigate your nasal cavity with the nasal alkaline solution. This will remove the crusts. We can also use 20% glucose in glycerin, and it is painted. This 25% glucose in glycerin is hygroscopic. Okay, then we can also use local anesthetics, like we have chemicetin anti-ozina solution, which contains chloramphenicol 90 milligrams, can be used. Chemicetin anti-ozina solution, that is chloramphenicol 90 milligrams, can be used. Then you can use estradiol dipropionate, which is 0.64 milligrams of estrogen dipropionate, can be used, or vitamin B12 900 international units, and propylene glycol can be used. So these are the different local antibiotics which are used. Okay, then we can also use potassium iodide, which will increase the nasal secretions. Then human placental in extract can be given as submucosal injection. This human placental extract will cause vasculogenesis and thus increases the blood supply to mucosa. Then drugs like rifampicin, streptomycin or estradiol spray, they can be given. Okay, they will increase, the estradiol spray will increase vascularity, whereas streptomycin will decrease odor and crusts. This is medical therapy. Now coming to the surgical therapy. Surgical therapy is mainly to decrease the size of the roomy nasal cavities. We have 2 surgeries which are available. One, we have Young's operation. Second, we have modified Young's operation. In Young's operation, we will close both the nostrils of the patient and then we open after 6 months. It is very incomplete technique. Then in modified Young's operation, you will do partial closure of nostril with 3 millimeters of hole for 2 years. You will do partial closure of nostrils with 3 millimeters of hole for about 2 years. That is modified Young's operation. So these are the drugs and the surgery that we do for atrophic rhinitis. Then there is one more operation which is available for narrowing the nasal cavity, which is called as Lautenschlager operation. In Lautenschlager operation, in this we give submucosal injection of Teflon plate, or we can insert the fat, cartilage, bone, Teflon strips under the mucoperiosteum of floor. Okay, here we can inject the insert fat, cartilage and bone or Teflon strips under the mucoperiosteum of floor and lateral wall of nose, or we can give submucosal injection of Teflon plate can also be given. Then the next disorder, which is called as rhinitis sicca. So what is this rhinitis sicca? This occurs in patients working in hot, dry, dusty surroundings. This occurs in patients working in hot, dry, dusty surroundings. Mainly it includes ironsmiths and bakery workers. Okay, in ironsmiths and bakery workers, there is respiratory ciliated epithelium. This respiratory ciliated columnar epithelium in the anterior part of the nose undergoes squamous metaplasia, and it also causes atrophy of seromucinous glands occurs. So in this situation, you will have to correct the occupational surroundings mainly, because this metaplasia mainly occurs due to hot, dry dusty occupational surroundings. Okay, this is rhinitis sicca. Sicca is dryness, rhinitis is nose. Then the next type of rhinitis which we have is allergic rhinitis. So in this allergic rhinitis, this is actually the type 1 hypersensitivity reaction. This allergic rhinitis is of two types. It is seasonal. As the name says, it occurs in a particular season. So here the agents include grass, flower or pollen. Okay, there are worse early morning symptoms are worst, and these seasonal causes will increase by dry windy condition. So if you see, that is in seasonal it occurs seasonally, and the symptoms are worse in the morning, and these symptoms are increased in by dry windy conditions. Then there is perennial also. Perennial allergens are present throughout the year. So these include sprays, drugs, smoke and perfumes. Okay, next clinical features include, it is most commonly seen in 12 to 16 years of age or 3rd to 4th decade. Okay, here there is itching of eyes, nose, and you will see sneezing, profuse watery discharge from the nose associated with post nasal drip. There is concomitant coughing and wheezing associated with this. This also causes nasal obstruction. So these are the clinical features which you see in allergic rhinitis. Then what are the signs? Signs, if you see, the nasal mucosa is pale, hypertrophied and bluish in color. You will see a transverse crease which is seen on the nose due to the rubbing of nose upwards, that is called as allergic salute. Okay, you will also see blockening of eustachian tube resulting in otitis media with effusion. It can also cause granular pharyngitis. It can also cause edema of vocal cord and hoarseness of voice also. This also causes edema of vocal cord and hoarseness of voice. If you see in eyes, it causes dark circles, and thus we call them as allergic shiners because of dark circles. They will also cause the lower eyelid skin presents has creases, that is Dennis Morgan's line. The lower eyelid skin mainly presents creases which are Dennis Morgan's line. So these are the main signs which are seen in allergic rhinitis. What about the investigations? Investigations include blood test where there is increased TLC, increased differential leukocyte count, and eosinophilia is seen. Even in the nasal smear you can see eosinophils. Skin tests like prick test or scratch test or intradermal test can be done. We can also do radio allergo immunosorbent assay for serum IgE measurement can also be done. Then what is the treatment? Treatment is avoidance of allergens, and for the avoidance of allergens we can give the drugs which are antihistaminics are the first line drugs which are given. Antihistaminics are the first line drugs which are given in allergic rhinitis. You can also give corticosteroids which occur in late phase of reaction. Then decongestants can also be given, that is intranasally you can give oxymetazoline or other decongestants can also be given. Then we can give immunotherapy also, but it is contraindicated in the following conditions. Contraindications of immunotherapy includes whenever the allergic rhinitis coexists with asthma, then immunotherapy is contraindicated. If the patient is on beta blockers or other medical or immunological disease, or if age of the person is less than 5 years and pregnancy, this immunotherapy is contraindicated. Then the next important lesion is vasomotor rhinitis, or we can also call it as allergic rhinitis. This vasomotor rhinitis or allergic rhinitis mainly occurs due to parasympathetic overactivity. Parasympathetic overactivity leads to congestion and vasodilatation, leading to this vasomotor rhinitis. What are the clinical features? Clinical features are the patient is emotionally unstable. It is more common in females more than males, that is in 20 to 40 years. It is associated with paroxysmal sneezing, which occurs just after getting out of bed in the morning. There is nasal obstruction. Excessive clear rhinorrhea and post-nasal drip are associated with vasomotor rhinitis. Signs mainly include the nasal mucosa is normal, but there is hypertrophic turbinate which is associated with this vasomotor rhinitis. So medical treatment is mainly done. So this medical treatment is, in this we should avoid the provocative factors, and you should give oral nasal decongestants should be given, which include phenylephrine or nasal xylometazoline can be given, which are oral nasal decongestants. The main thing is we should avoid the provocative factors. Here the main important thing is there is paroxysmal sneezing just after getting out of the bed, which will suggest the parasympathetic overactivity. Here the treatment surgery is mainly to treat the complication. Here we can do Vidian neurectomy. What is Vidian neurectomy? Vidian neurectomy is sectioning of parasympathetic fibers. See, here the culprit is overactivity of parasympathetic fibers. So as a result, if we section the parasympathetic fibers, definitely this vasomotor rhinitis will decrease. Then we have something called as rhinitis caseosa or cholestetoma. What is this rhinitis caseosa or cholestetoma? In this there is accumulation of cheesy material or white offensive debris is accumulated in the nose, and this is also associated with invasion of bony structures and soft tissues of face. There is accumulation of cheesy material with white offensive debris, and there is invasion of bony structures and soft tissues of face is seen in rhinitis caseosa. It is most commonly unilateral and it is seen in males. Here in this rhinitis caseosa or nasal cholestetoma, we see removal of debris and repeated irritation is seen. Right? Then the next rhinitis is, we have rhinitis medicamentosa. So what is this rhinitis medicamentosa? It mainly occurs due to the use of topical decongestant drops. When one uses excessive use of topical decongestant drops, then it leads to rhinitis medicamentosa. Here the treatment of this is, you will have to remove the or withdraw the nasal decongestant which was given. So you should never ever give these nasal decongestants for more than 5 days. So this is about rhinitis medicamentosa. So thank you guys for watching my lecture. In the next class we will learn about epistaxis. Thank you.